Hey, what's up, y'all? Don't want to make this video super long. I'm starting off with this article that you see right next to me, and that is a post that I wrote after Anthony Davis was injured. And like my old college teammates that I played with, they like, oh man, that dude need to stop wearing those, Kobe's, them low cuts, man. They need to stop wearing. And I'm like, because I'm in the sneaker industry and I've made my own shoes. I'm like, dude, I don't even say anything. I just leave it alone. But I've carried that same conversation because someone said over on LinkedIn, and there tend to be more sneaker industry people over there on LinkedIn on my network, and they were saying the same thing. And I was like, dude, no. I talked to Chuck Lawson. I'm going to open up another window here. Scoop.com. And the reason I'm opening up this window is because Chuck Lawson is a scout who covers middle school basketball. And his website is 901 Prep Scoop. So you can see the link here. I called him and I needed wanted to ask him a question, which I kind of knew the answer to, but I wanted validation because I haven't been in basketball for about 10 years now. And I called Chuck and I asked him, I said, hey, Chuck, the guys that are like the high level basketball players, how many games do they play in middle school? Now, Chuck covers both middle school and high school, but a lot of his work is with middle school. So when you click through and you start looking at the information, it's pretty, the website's great. So 901 Prep Scoop is fantastic. You can look at the information. He does all of the video and everything else here. But I asked him, I said, how many games do they play in high school? And he said probably about 25. In middle school, he said probably about 25. And then I asked him, the guys that are elite, not the guys that can't make the travel teams that go everywhere. I said, the guys that are elite, how many games do they play outside of the season? And he said, probably 50, 60 games in the spring, an additional 25 to 30 in the summer. At the low end, Chuck Lawson, the scout, who also writes for Dunk Dog, is saying that middle school players can play up to 100 games a year. Now, this takes me back to the article on Anthony Davis's ankle injuries are not due to low-cut sneakers, and I've explained this over and over again, but what I want to do this time, like I said, I don't want to keep you guys for an extended long time, but I'm just like, dude, let's stop talking about these shoes like the shoes are the culprit, and let's really get to the root of the problem, which I've explained over and over is overuse. When kids are playing in middle school, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, when kids are playing 80 to 100 games a year, and they continue that pattern all the way through, odds are the players that you see getting injured in the NBA right now, odds are they didn't even get to have a break. They may have only had 1 year of a break. They don't cross-train. They don't get the proper landing techniques. There's so many things that go into the biomechanics of what happens to your body when you utilize the same muscles over and over again. That's important. But let's jump into this. And I want to start with a quote. Too much, too fast. And this is from Healthcare News. Each year we see younger and younger kids specializing in one sport, spending more than 8 or 9 months playing one sport, focusing on it year-round, 5 or 6 years in a row. And that's from Dr. Zachary Shepard, who specializes in pediatrics and sports medicine at Riverbend Medical Group. And then the rest of this quote says, indeed, a 2015 survey in the American Journal of Sports Medicine found that of all Tommy John surgeries in the U.S., the patients are 15 to 19 years old. Tommy John surgeries used to be for professional baseball players. Since baseball has become professionalized, just like basketball, just like every sport where you're trying to attain a college scholarship, everything's become professionalized. If you don't play travel baseball, if you don't play travel basketball, the odds of you getting a scholarship diminishes. Shepard said, and this is the doctor from this quote that I'm reading over here, those significant injuries result from repetitive use over time. Now, People said that Anthony Davis's shoes caused this. Here are a few facts about Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis grew from 6'2" to 6'10" in 1 year. Now, that growth contributes to a lot of the problems that Anthony Davis has. He's a guy who was extremely athletic as a guard, who grew, and he remained just as athletic. That means that his torque, his ability to run faster, jump higher, all of those things remained, but now he's trying to figure it out from a middle school, high school, and then 1 year in college. Because remember, he only played 1 year. And if you go down the list of a lot of these guys who are being injured, they only had a break of 1 year. And that's in college, where they only played 30 games. So if you've played 80 games a year for 8 years straight, and then you get a break of 1 year, But think about this. Ja Morant, who plays in almost the exact same way that Derrick Rose did, and Allen Iverson. But Allen Iverson, you remember, he stopped dunking after his first year. When you've played all of that time and you don't get a break, you only get 1 year of college. Ja Morant had 2 years. He had a break. 2 years. He stayed in school 2 years where he got to learn about nutrition, how to take care of his body, how to jump. So let's get to these videos. And I know you guys are like, come on, man, get to it. And I want to get to it. And I'm trying to make sure you understand something. Every time Anthony Davis plays, his injuries are not because of his explosiveness. It's because he lands on someone. Odds are, every time, there's no odds. If we continue to watch this video, we go back and rewind, go back and forth in between it, Anthony Davis injuries are always when he lands on someone else's foot. Now, some of those injuries, because over time, injuries are cumulative. All right? Cumulative. And I know somebody's like, well, how do you know all this stuff? I was a high school head coach. I was a junior college recruiter. I scouted I sent 100 people to college on basketball scholarships. I had to get certified as a high school coach when I coached. So I had a certification. I'm not talking out the side of my neck and just whistling Dixie. I'm telling you things because I understand these. I also speak to people who are in biomechanics and who are in testing shoes, who create the footwear that we all wear on a daily basis. Anthony Davis gets injured because he lands on people. Now, all of those injuries over time contribute to scar tissue and a lot of straining, where it's easier for him to get injured again when these things happen. But you have to remember, this is a dude that grew 8 inches in 1 year, and then he added 12 pounds of muscle on a frame that never really got a break. 1 year in college is all he had, straight to the NBA with an additional 80 games a year. 80 games a year from the time he was in middle school. All right? So let's keep going in this. The most important aspect of injury. Landing jumps, and this is from the Athletes Training Center, over here to my side. Landing jumps is one of the most common causes of anterior cruciate ligament injuries. ACL injuries resulting from a jump normally coming from a single leg landing. And this is very important, a single leg landing. The instability and extreme forces combine to be more than the supporting muscles can absorb and counter. The ACL is left exposed, but it's all more than the ACL can bear. Who do we go to next? Derrick Rose. And we want to watch this because look at the jump, and then you look at, and I'm pointing at the screen like you can see it, look at his left leg. When he lands, it's straight. Once again, he dunks, straight leg landing. Straight leg landing. Now, go back to this paragraph and you read that. Somebody was like, oh, he wearing Adidas. Adidas make his legs hurt. Well, here's the irony of saying that Adidas is making his legs hurt. And I made sure I put that to rest in a different article. And I click on it because the same year that Derrick Rose was injured and he was wearing X shoes, the University of Kansas, those players had hardly any injuries that year, and they were all wearing Derrick Rose's, John Wall's, and Damian Lillard's. when you sit down and you begin to make these arguments and these discussions, please do some research and think about what you're saying. Derrick Rose did not have correct landing techniques. So we listen to...
Would you get into a car that went 100 miles per hour if the brakes only worked up to 60 miles an hour? The same concept is applied to landing before jumping. We want to make sure that we can tolerate the landing position, that we have really good sound mechanics with the landing position, and that it feels good for our body, and that we practice that technique before we move into jumping. Because let's face it, when we go to jump, we actually move down into the landing position, and then we jump, and then we come back down to the landing position. So we want to make sure that we build really strong brakes, aka our muscles, and we're going to do that with exercises, we're going to do that with landing.
Now, I didn't want to make that go for that long because that keeps you here on the page way longer than it needed to, but this is on a page from the prehab guys, and it's on teaching landing mechanics. When you play travel basketball, it diminishes the amount of time that you can learn strength building. You don't get to lift weights. You don't get to participate in other sports. You don't get to rehab. When you aren't getting the proper training early, it contributes to multiple problems later. Now, someone would say Derrick Rose plays just like, or Ja Morant plays just like Derrick Rose. There's a huge difference. Now, you can find video where Ja Morant lands with a straight leg every so often. But we're going to look at a couple of plays from Ja Morant, and you're going to see something that's completely different. Boom. Now, did you see that? And they're going to repeat this. Watch when he lands. Catches the ball. When he lands, 2 legs bent. He comes down in the correct landing position. Now, you watch this. Boom. He's squatting. He's landing. Watch when he lands. Boom. He's taking the pressure off of his legs. And it's important. Boom. Now, you see, even though that was a one leg, that leg bent when he came down. There's shock absorption. Ja Morant spent 2 years in college. 2 years in college. Those 2 years, he was able to get the training that he needed. Imagine had Zion Williamson stayed at Duke for 1 more year. Think about it. Somebody's like, well, he would have just got injured in. No, he would not have gotten injured in college. They would have looked at the way he played. They would have had the trainers and the dietitians to work on his diet in college. He would have gotten, Duke is basically a professional basketball program. He would have gotten all that he needed to get stronger and better. When these guys stay 1 year, it increases the likelihood of them being hurt later. Now, somebody can go back and say, well, Kobe didn't even play college basketball, so you don't know what you're saying. Kobe played soccer. Kobe's shoes are built on the fact that he played soccer. Kobe cross-trained young. And then when he got into the NBA, the same as LeBron, he spent a ridiculous amount of money on his body. Maintenance, muscle mass, building the correct muscles, learning the correct techniques. Chris Paul was injured with a hamstring injury. The hamstring injury is a completely different injury than anything else. So if we watch a Chris Paul, and when he got hurt, he lands, and that's a movement injury. Chris Paul does not dunk. He can dunk, and you can find videos where he's dunked. But he doesn't a lot. He plays below the rim. He doesn't have a real herky-jerky movement to his game. That diminishes the amount of torque on his legs. The only reason I'm doing this video is because I had the longest drawn out back and forth discussion with someone on LinkedIn, and they just wanted to stress how much Kobe's hurt Anthony Davis. Here's something interesting about the guy who really got the entire league playing in low-cut shoes. When we go to look at his injury, sprained ankle, 97-98, that was in Adidas. He was playing in high tops. Sprained ankle, 0001. I think that was Adidas too. But that's not even the point. You see sprained ankle 3, All of those in the severe sprained ankle, 0405, I think was his year of Kobe in Colorado. I hate using the rap lyric to remember what year that was. I think that was 0001. So he was leaving Adidas right around that time. That was 3 years. He was a free agent. But let's look at the distance between these injuries. When he moves into the low cut shoes, which is from the Kobe 4 all the way up to the Kobe 9, and I think the Kobe 9 had the high top with the boot. You have what? Sprained ankle 06, 07, sprained ankle 09, 010. Look at the distance between those. Here's a guy that played in his own shoes that were low tops. And the last time he was injured in that way, 12-13 severe ankle sprain. These injuries took place far apart. All of these injuries are strictly from the fact that this dude played through so much damage. It was not because of the shoes. Anthony Davis is not being injured because of his sneakers. Can the wrong shoes hurt you? Yes. Yes. But that's not what's happening here. And I want to end on this picture right next to me. You're telling me the same dunk happens every decade, but you can play better because of the technology in your sneakers. You guys need to have your arguments together. Go back and look at the facts, look at these players, and then think. Think about how many games dudes are playing. Think about all these games that these dudes are playing. From middle school to the time they get drafted to the pros. And realize that these guys have not had a break. And you are getting to the point where you understand the problems with overuse and professionalization of youth sports. Go to the real problem. Let these kids be kids. We can still find a way to get them recruited and get seen. Cross-train. Get the proper instruction. Find trainers. If you really want somebody to be a pro, learn how to let them rest. That's it. I'll leave you guys with that, and I'll see you on the next one.